Hi everybody and welcome to Story Time again. Now last time I spoke about the creation and how God made everything and it was good. Well, what I would like to do now is to continue with the story. In fact, what I'm planning to do is to travel through the Bible and touch on some of the stories but tell you some more in a lot more detail. So let's put Adam and let's put Eve here, shall we? And remember last week that we saw how Adam and Eve were the first people that God made. He made a man and he made a woman. And he brought them together and they got married. And he said to them, go and have lots of children. Go and multiply and look after the wonderful earth that I have made. And Adam and Eve would look after things down here on the earth while God looked after things in heaven. And Adam and Eve enjoyed the best friendship with God ever. In fact, they knew him and they used to walk with him and enjoy God. But all that was to change. And at the beginning of this story, I'm going to tell you how that happened. So Adam and Eve were put in charge. They were put in charge of the animals and they were put in charge of the earth. And God said to them, there's one tree that you're not to eat from. And he showed them the tree. And it's this tree here. It's the tree, the Bible tells us, of the knowledge of good and evil. God said, it was like God was saying, of all the trees you can eat except one, because that's my tree. But the one thing that God told them not to do you know what? They did. And the Bible tells us that the enemy of God, his name is Satan or the devil. He came and he tempted Eve and she did what God told them not to do. She took the fruit from the tree and she ate it and she gave some to Adam. Now it wasn't just about taking an apple. We're not even sure what that kind of tree was that she took it from. But it was the fact that they did what they shouldn't have done. It was like they didn't trust God. They started to think that God was not good. And you know, that spoiled their friendship with God. In fact, no longer could they be friends with God and be close to God. Instead, because of what they'd done, something called sin entered the world. And sin is just a small word, and you spell it like this: S-I-N. Because sin has a big I in the middle. And when people sin, it means when they do wrong things, they're really saying, I, big I, know better than God. I'm not going to do what God says. I'm going to do what I want to do. And Adam and Eve's friendship with God was spoiled. They had to leave the beautiful paradise that God had for them, and things started to go wrong. After that, things started to go wrong. So I'm going to take these off the tree now. And we're going to take Adam and Eve away. Adam and Eve had lots and lots and lots and lots of children. And probably they lived a lot longer than we do today. But sin was like a disease. Even worse than the coronavirus that we are seeing today in the world, because it stopped people being friends with God and it caused people to be nasty to one another. And so one of Adam and Eve's sons, called Cain, was angry with his brother that he even killed him. And sin was so bad and it began to spread and spread and spread all over the earth that God had made, that one day God said, I am really sad that I have made the world. In fact, no one wants to be my friend anymore. But there was one man who pleased God. And let me tell you about him. Let's put him here. His name is Noah. Can you say Noah? Noah. Good. Noah knew God and he walked with God and he wanted to please God. This is Mrs. Noah. We don't know what her name is really. And Noah had 3 boys who were married to 3 girls. So let's put them over here. Here's one of them. We'll put them up here a little bit. It's one of them. Here's the other one. She looks a little bit like Mary, doesn't she? But she's not Mary in this part of the story. Here's one of his sons. We call him Shem. Here's another one of his sons. We call him Ham. Yep, just like the meat we eat. And this one is one of the daughters-in-law. And here's his other son, and he was called Japheth. So the three boys were married to the three girls. This is Noah, and this is his wife. One day God spoke to Noah, and he told Noah how sad he was that everyone was doing evil all of the time. It was like everyone that was born had this disease, this virus of S-I-N inside them. So much that God said, I'm going to send a massive flood, and I'm going to flood the whole world. But Noah and his family pleased God. So God said to Noah, Noah, I want you to build a boat. Now, Noah didn't even know what a boat was. I don't think it had even rained. But God said, I'm going to send rain, and it's going to flood, and it's going to wash the whole world clean. Lots of people will die. Lots of animals will die too. But I want you to build this massive boat. Now, I'm going to put it over here. It doesn't look that massive there, does it? But it was absolutely massive. If you've ever seen the film Evan Almighty, you will know how big. It was bigger than a football pitch. Wow! And it had 3 decks on it. And Noah had to build it with his family, and they all helped. And then God sent their animals, and they came 2 by 2. 2 of all the different types of animals went on board Noah's ark. And God saved him when he sent the big flood across the earth. Now, if you were living in Mitcham today, and this is Friday, there was an amazing rainbow this morning at 6:15 in the morning. It was incredible. And it went like that, like an arch. After God had sent that flood, and Noah and his family were kept safe, when they came out afterwards, they were the only people left on the earth. But God put in the sky this amazing rainbow. Look at that. And you know, God made a promise with Noah, and he said to him, Noah, never again will I flood the whole earth. This is my promise to you. And so when God sees the rainbow, he remembers his promise to Noah. In fact, the rainbow is like a picture that God keeps his promises. When you see the rainbow, will you remember that God keeps his promises? Well, Noah and his family, they started to have children, and they started to have children. But the problem was this disease, this virus of S-I-N was still in the world. People were still getting angry. They were still being selfish. They were still being jealous. They were still hurting one another and just wanting to please themselves. And God looked at the world that he made, and he saw how sad it had become. In fact, one day, lots and lots of people got together. Let's put them over here. Lots and lots of people got together. We'll take Noah's Ark down now, shall we? There we are. And they said, we want to build a massive tower. The biggest city the world has ever seen. And we're going to try and get to heaven by building a massive city. God said, don't do it. That's not the way to get to heaven. That's not the way to know me. But one of the ways to know me is to please me, is to believe in me, is to do what I say in the Bible. But they didn't listen to God. They carried on building their city. Look at them all. Loads and loads and loads of people here. And what happened was they built this massive city, or started to build it. And while they were building it, God stopped them. He stopped them like this, by changing all their languages. Suddenly, someone that was speaking, we'll say German, started to speak English. Someone that was speaking English started to speak French, and no one could understand one another. God confused the languages, and there was a lot of babble. This is the Tower of Babel. And this was the start of God spreading people out across the world so that people live in different countries. Can you see that the world God made good has become bad? It's become sinful. People didn't want to please God anymore. They wanted to do what they wanted to do. The last part of the story is where God begins to tell people his rescue plan to deal with S-I-N. This is God's rescue plan. And it happened, it started in a country that today we would call Iraq. Yes, a country today we will call Iraq. And there was a man, and he lived in a lovely house. He was quite a rich man. Here he is. His name was Abraham. Can you say Abraham? That's brilliant. Abraham was married, and this is his wife, Sarah. She was beautiful, the Bible tells us. Abraham had a dad who was a lot older. We'll put him here. And Abraham also looked after his nephew. Sadly, Abraham's brother had died. And when his brother died, Abraham looked after his son. And Lot, that was his name, became like Abraham's son as well. Abraham was very rich. He lived in Iraq. And he didn't know about the God of heaven. He didn't know about the God that had made everything. In fact, can you believe it? Abraham and his family used to worship things like the sun and the moon. Yeah. Instead of worshipping the God that made the sun and the moon, they worshipped the sun and the moon. They hadn't heard of the God of heaven. One day, the God who made the sun and the moon spoke to Abraham. When he lived, the country was called Ur. Can you say Ur? Say Ur. That's right. It's Iraq today. And God said to him, Abraham, Abraham. And Abraham started to believe and trust in the God of heaven. God gave him 3 promises. These were the 3 promises. Abraham, leave your country, and I'm going to give you a country all of your own. Abraham, leave all the people that you're with, except your family here, and I'm going to give you such a big family, Abraham. It's going to be like trying to count the stars. Look, let's put the stars up here. Have you ever tried to count the stars in the sky? Well, there are billions of them. And God said, if you can count the stars in the sky, Abraham, I'm going to give you so many children, so many descendants, so many people are going to come from your family in the future. It's going to be amazing. You won't be able to count them, just like the stars or the sand on the sea. Well, Abraham was like a shepherd, actually. He would look after sheep. Let's put some sheep here. In fact, we're going to say all these people now are working for Abraham because he had lots of servants, people that worked for him as well. And he had sheep, and he had, there's a little baby one there. And he had goats. Let's put some cows there. And so God gave him 3 promises. 1, I'm going to give you a country all of your own. Number 2, I'm going to give you a family that you won't be able to count. And number 3, and this is where we're finished, Abraham, from your family, I'm going to bring somebody one day who will be good news for the whole wide world. Who do you think that person will be? I know what you're saying. It was Jesus, wasn't it? Yes. Jesus would eventually, many, many years later, come from the family of Abraham, and he would be the one who would deal with that problem of S-I-N and help us to be friends with God again. But I'm going to tell you more about the story next time. Thank you for listening.